The voice speaks.
Or I thought smart remark, but I won't make it. I don't think we have any voting scheduled for this evening.
Yeah.
So we probably don't need to do a roll call. I know we are missing Casey and Jonathan. Jonathan is off doing research in the Wild West, and Casey is enjoying her 10th anniversary somewhere. Are there any additions or changes to the agenda? Is there anyone in the public who would like to address the council? We don't need an executive session, I don't believe. You do anything? Administration, we have anything?
No, we don't need to next week.
So
Development?
Just very briefly, that reminder folks that the third Thursday for this month is this Thursday. And Somebody to Love, which has been postponed twice, he's going to play this Thursday. So please come out and, spend some money downtown on Thursday. And then on Saturday, June 4th, DI is doing their flower basket and tree bed day. And they're still looking for some volunteers. If you'd like to volunteer, you can go to the Downtown Indiana Facebook page, and then sort of from there, you can sign up to volunteer. So that's on June 4th. And that's all we got.
what time is the third Thursday again?
5, I think, is that right?
Any developments?
Might add just a reminder too, we have the Pennsylvania Jazz and Blues Festival coming up. That's Saturday before Memorial Day.
The 28th.
Hopefully the weather's
So it's such a roll of the dice these days.
Reports.
We meet on Thursday.
Don't think we have anything. Anything else? Nope. Meet next week.
Sure. Report.
No.
Manager, you have a report.
About third Thursday. Ben said it. The only thing, David Bazzoni from the HRG from our stamp program is going to be here all day tomorrow talking to the staff and that. So their report's coming along again. They'll probably meet with us in June. So at the work session and present their report.
Thank you. Any questions for the manager? Chief.
Mr. President, thank you. Members of council, I first want to just acknowledge that May 15th was Peace Officer Memorial Day, and the week in which it falls is National Police Week, in recognition of officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty and the safety and protection of others. And that date and this week provides us with an opportunity to reflect upon the courage and commitment of the men and women committed to community safety, while recognizing that today's truest importance is honoring the memory of all who have been killed or disabled in service. I just want to reiterate that the men and women of your police department exist to enhance the quality of life of our residents. They are committed to peace, safety, and comfort, and they do so with honor, integrity, and respect. And today, tomorrow, and for all years to come, I am 100% convinced and committed that they are going to work tirelessly and continue working tirelessly to continue earning your trust, protecting your loved ones, and ensuring future community successes. So much work remains to be done, and we're going to do so with benevolent intent. I appreciate your support and the support of everyone wearing an Indiana Borough Police uniform. And I just wanted to make certain that I recognize that day. Secondly, I want to thank you for excusing my absence at council the first week of May. I had the honor and privilege of attending a national command course put on by the FBI. And I just want to let you know that I attended that course with 52 chiefs of police from across the country. The furthest chief northwest was from St. Paul Island, Alaska. The furthest chief southeast was Sebastian, Florida. And so 3 chiefs of police from Pennsylvania attended with me, one from Tunkhannock Township in the Pocono region, and one from South Strabane Township in Pittsburgh. So I consider myself one of 100 chiefs of police in the United States who have graduated from that course. And I thank you for your support. So, some of the topics of discussion for that course were emotional intelligence, constitutional issues in policing, physical fitness for law enforcement, preventing targeted violence, strategic leadership, and officer wellness, all of which I appreciate the opportunity to discuss with my colleagues. Finally, I did not provide April's report at the beginning of the month because I wanted to be here if you had any questions. Calls for service in April. Really, the most significant change is that there's an increase in crashes through Indiana Borough, 23 month of April compared to 14 in April of 2021. So I just want to, every chance I get, continue to reiterate the traffic safety is important. Slow down, tell your neighbors, slow down, be safe, look both ways, use extra caution. Avoiding crashes ultimately is everyone's responsibility, even though the police department will certainly do their part to try and mitigate those efforts that need to be addressed. So unless there are questions, I have no other report, and I thank you.
Possible to add 2019 as a benchmark year to look at, because we're only looking at pandemic years right now.
Stopped in 2022. We can certainly do that.
I was curious what qualifies as a university-related activity.
So university-related call would be one in which it's a student at IUP that's identified during our investigation, or someone visiting IUP's campus who's the subject of our investigation, or an event at IUP that requires our response. So one of those 3 things has to happen.
To be rapidly aiming at last year's number, and we're only in May. I know, obviously, college, am I reading that correctly? Year to date, 2020. Oh, to date, never mind. I read that wrong. I'm sorry. I was like, that's not a good trend, if that was what that meant. But never mind. I take it back.
Very excited that you were one of the people that got to attend that and were chosen and qualified. So thanks for bringing that knowledge back to our community. Thank you.
Mr. Solicitor.
I have nothing new to report.
And I'm next. Where I'm going to report that this afternoon, I guess it was afternoon, it started at 12. I attended an online meeting of the Pennsylvania Municipal League that then broke down into district meetings. But the major part of it was a discussion of the implications of the bilateral infrastructure law, or the bill law, or the bill or something. In any case, especially interesting in light of what we're going to be discussing this evening, because this is a totally separate source of money for some of the kinds of things that we're looking at doing with the ARP money. Now, unfortunately, this was a statewide thing. There wasn't really any chance to interact and ask specific questions about it. It was done by the National League of Cities. The presentation was. But we need to be aware that there are these additional funds out there for some of the kinds of things that we're looking at, such as stormwater. There's a lot on drinking water, but we don't have a drinking water system that we are responsible for. There's road money. For me just exactly how well it was structured, but I do have a multi-page PDF that I did not take the time to read. It's in small print, but it's available, and it's available online, and I have the link that I can share with anyone who's wants to pour through it, but I think that our staff needs to be aware of that. Are you aware of this?
Yeah, and then we'll kind of get into some of that in this presentation.
Good.
Did you get a sense of the amount that we might be expecting?
Well, for communities our size, it's all funneled through the state. Cities, big cities will get it directly from the federal government, but communities our size has to work through the state.
I'd assume it's going to be a similar process as the ARP funds in terms of how
Probably.
that funnels down.
That's sort of what it looked like to me. Okay, your questions?
I apologize if you said this right in the beginning. Is there a timeline on that?
Yeah, there are, it's similar to the ARP timeline.
Oh, okay. So like by what, 2024, you got to have it allowed and something like that?
But I think for this one, you need the proposals in. You've got to put in your requests for money. For the ARP, we've got the money. Right. This one you have to request, and there's, I guess, in a sense, some amount of competition for those funds. Okay. Your questions? Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you. Just wanted to let you know that the chief and I are starting to take weekly walks up and down Philadelphia Street, do a little lunch type things, and anybody that would like to be with us, that'd be great. It's interesting how people do stop and tell us what they think. We didn't get black and blue or anything like that, so that was a good thing. So just to let you know, we're just trying to touch the community, and we'll do that on a weekly basis. In the middle of the week, normally Wednesdays or Thursdays, just depending on everybody's schedule. So anybody's interested, just let us know, and we'll be glad to work it out and have lunch, at the Coney or someplace out on the sidewalk. So that's it.
Any questions for the mayor?
I have a backup question for Chief Shaw. I forgot. Did you mention anything about the baby incident from last week? Or is there nothing to mention or?
I did not mention anything about that incident. I'd be happy to briefly broach it if you have a specific question. I issued a press release about it that was published in the Gazette, but if there's a specific question the council would have, I'll do my best to be sensitive in all realms regarding the investigative response. Is there more that you'd like to know or a specific question that you think maybe public?
I thought it was determined that it was, the baby was not alive at the time.
It did result in a death investigation that we conducted in the 700 block of Philadelphia Street.
Okay, just wondering why you didn't mention it.
I'm sorry. You wondered why I didn't mention it?
But that's fine. I mean, I read the article, so that's good.
Though we don't, I mean, I don't think normally we don't talk about specific things. Like it's,
It was
Chief-
just kind of a
Chief-
big thing that happened. But
yeah, but I don't think, I mean,
Or it isn't back yet, is
Well,
it?
so the investigation, first of all, is open. Second of all, there are more extensive reports given at the Public Safety Committee that I don't generally share with full council. If there's more that council would like me to report upon specific incidents or when something reaches a certain threshold, I'd be happy to. There was great work done down there by all involved, and it's a tragic event, no matter how the case gets closed. So
it was pretty significant though.
Fair to put on the chief, is he supposed to talk about every traffic accident and every time? I'm saying is people die, it is unfortunate, but it does happen. Isn't this?
I get the point. So anyway, I have another thing to mention from the ad hoc committee, since Casey's not here. We're going to be meeting on Tuesdays, May 24th, 9:30 a.m., June 14th, 9:30, and June 28th, 9:30. Just FYI.
That's the committee that's looking at how we're going to approach either redrawing the lines or reconfiguring how we elect each other. Anything else? The main item for tonight is the American Rescue Plan.
Hi.
Nicole, 10-minute presentation before you guys kick it off. Go ahead and talk. I'll set it up.
Okay. Well, Kyle's good to set up. I do want to, I'm going to come up here just because we're going to have stuff up there. I do want to thank Kyle because obviously you guys know this started a year ago. And Kyle, the previous manager and the previous planner was involved. We had 2 people leave in the meantime. So Kyle has stuck with me through this and we've been working with everyone. And I think we're coming up with a good game plan. So we're going to go ahead. Kyle's going to kind of give an overview of what happened at the kind of the beginning of the process. And then I'll pick up when we started meeting with all the different committees.
All right. Thank you, Nicole. Good evening, everybody. I think she pretty much stole my introduction from me, so I'm just going to get right into it. Thank you, though. I appreciate that. So yeah, the first couple slides, these ones are pretty text heavy. Sorry, this is just kind of the general overview. We designed this PowerPoint to kind of go with your packet. So if you want to flick through your packet while I'm talking, that'll probably be how you keep the best track. So basically, as Nicole said, when we get it was March of last year when this bill was first enacted, and we first got our first lump sum back in July. That was for half of the portion. Oh, sorry about that. And we should expect our second portion to come again in July. So hopefully by August, we have the entire 1.3 million that we were allotted. As you see on the right side there, we have to obligate the funds. That means in our project report, every April, we're going to have to submit a report about what we're doing with the money. So in 2024 of April, that's when they're going to say, hey, it's been a couple of years now. How are you spending this money? And then they give us an additional 2 years to spend that money because they understand infrastructure projects, et cetera, can take some time. So moving on, we have an overview of the state and local fiscal recovery funds program. Like all government programs, it's not as simple as ARP money. ARP is the bill creates programs create money trickles down to communities like ours. So really, when we talk about quote ARP money, it's actually the SLFRFP money. But that's a mouthful. So we're just going to continue to call it ARP money for our own internal stuff. And as you see at the bottom there, that's about the final rule. That is actually page 1 to 11 of your packet. That's where all this information comes from. This is the actual full overview of how these funds can be used, what programs you can have, everything you need is listed in the final rule, basically. And I just shared with you guys the first 10 pages. It's a 50-60 page document. It's not too long, but you've probably actually seen most of it throughout your committees. That's where a lot of those papers came from that you looked at. So that just started in January, as you can see. So it's interesting. We kind of started before the Treasury even finalized how the money could actually be spent. They sent everybody checks and then they said, hey, wait 6 months and we'll tell you how you can use it. And places were like, well, we're just going to use it. And they took that into effect with the final rule, actually, as we'll get into. So that kind of helps a lot. And I'm thankful for it, honestly, because they could have made it a much more convoluted process. But they basically said, hey, if you got less than $10 million, spend it however you want, just check with us first. And so that falls into us because we only get 1.3. But here are your 4 eligible uses in the program. If you look at number 1, the top left, public sector revenues, that's pretty much what we're going to use most of our funding for. Even if it kind of overlaps with some other categories for reporting purposes, because of the streamlined reporting with under 10 million, we're going to go with the public sector revenues. On government services, this coincides with the spending on revenue section. These are what we're allowed to spend on what is quote government services. So if anything can fall into this broad category, we can pretty much allocate funds towards it. And as you can see, it's quite flexible. Okay, now now let's move on from the text heavy ones. Public outreach, this is what Nicole was talking about. And, we started kind of when Michael and Steffi and I started meeting last summer about this. We devised the game plan of trying to get public comment and then try to take that comment to the council, so then you guys could discuss in your committees. And it was complicated again, because if you recall, the final rule wasn't created till January. So we needed to take the information that was given to us at the time, as broad as it was, as vague as it was, and try to understand what our community members really kind of feel is most important. So to do that, we had 2 polls and we had 2 open houses. The first open house, it was a little too early, I think. It was kind of getting to be the holiday season. There's still kind of confusion of what ARP means and what this all entails. So it wasn't too well attended, but our polls actually were, we had good participation in our polls. And if you actually see in your packets, I've included poll 1 and poll 2, all of the information on there. And so we won't go over it too much in detail, but I did find some interesting parts. For example, in poll 1, with the question of where do you live, you can see a pretty even breakdown between all the wards, and then the other option was outside the ward. So it wasn't like we had a concentration of one ward, one area. It was a pretty collective approach of the entire community, which I found fascinating, and I was proud of it. For example, another thing though is most people seemed, there wasn't really a one way or another on any of the topics. It was most funding and some funding was predominantly on every single one, mainly some funding. That was every question. It just seems that some money should go to it. That doesn't really get you answers in a poll. But our second one actually narrowed down a little bit more once we ended up getting more information for the Treasury and we're able to have more concise questions. And I put these on the slides because I find it interesting that while there was mostly some funding and most people were kind of mixed and wanted to support things, equally, there were some very big standouts, and those are the 2 on your right there. If you see which was the most important, with being a loan program for small businesses, counseling for small businesses, or PPE equipment for small businesses. Overwhelmingly, people voted to have the loan program for small businesses, and they seem to be in agreement of PPE was not a priority. And then vice versa, when it comes to providing premium pay, most people felt that unemployment benefits should not be something that we should spend money on. And those were kind of the only kind of points of agreement. Everything else was kind of, some people felt like there was some funding that should go to it. And then others felt that, most funding, but it was only really those 2 things. It was a loan program for small businesses and premium pay for unemployment, which people were for and against, respectively. Moving on, the last thing here, before I hand it over to Nicole, is our website finally has been updated to include the Indiana Borough ARP webpage. It's as simple as indianaborough.com/ARP. And on there, we have a public comment form. And I'm hoping that from this point on, people in the public will be able to provide input, which we can, I'm sorry, I don't know why this pops so much. It's frustrating. It makes you lose your train of thought. But anyway, yeah, I want that to be an ongoing process. And I want people to be able to fill out that form. Ideally, at least till the end of the year, giving you guys input of what they think of what is being discussed at that current time. That's kind of the way I'm mapping it out in my head, at least, as in like, we have our initial conversations tonight. I hope our press partners can report on it. All their previous reporting is already on that page. It'll just be continued to add to the list. So that way the public can be up to date and follow the history of what is happening. They can provide input through the form. We also have forms available here. We have them at the office. We'll have them at events. We can do public participation with both the forms and digital, and just try to keep the public engaged as much as we can as we navigate through this process. So that's what we've done up to here, and then I'm going to pass it off to Nicole here, because she knows the details of what you all have been discussing for the last couple months. So it's the down one. Are you ready to go to the next slide?
Okay.
Yep.
All right. I do want to point out when we were talking about public input, the last two articles that the Gazette did was really good articles and that helped get the information out. So the more information we can get out, the better. So people weren't thrown off by what we spent. So this slide shows us where we all started, how we attended each committee with ideas. And then from each committee, we were given some ideas. Then I took that back and met with Kyle and Steph, and we compiled some information from those committees. So this is what we came up with. And again, let's go over some of these categories. Like when we talk about the general service, and then again, some of these were brought up in all the committees, or some people might not even be aware about. But under general service, we have the boiler replacement. And obviously, if you're on Public Works, you know the issue with the community center with the boiler replacement. That we would like to see be brought over to this building. And again, the categories, how we're, and we'll get into some the budget figures here in a minute. Obviously, under that is then under general service, you have your ordinance updates. Our poor zoning and code department pulls their hair out daily because they just believe the ordinances need looked at and up to date. So what we would like to do is bring in maybe a consultant, go through our ordinances and look at updating that. Now, we do have some funding available through the CBG funding for to use for the planning ordinance. So that, again, that figure in the budget can be adjusted because there might be funding available, like some of these other infrastructure fundings. Parking improvements, we all know COVID parking took the worst of COVID. So there's we worked with the director to come up with some items that to help with their department that would help in their budget process that they're going to need over the years times. And if we can use some of this ARP money to help with some big purchases to improve the parking, that's a benefit. And we all, like, again, we all know that parking took a huge hit during COVID. And under here, we have a police vehicle, and that's self-explanatory. It's a new vehicle that falls under the category for public or for police service. And again, that's a budget figure that would help in long term, that we wouldn't have to take the money out of general fund. We could use it as part of the ARP funding. And the building, borough building, it needs, that's the Public Works barn needs insulation put in, and then obviously the borough hall here needs renovation, and part of that's all in your packet, and we'll go over some details of the figures. Economic development, we'd like to see, this came through a lot through community development, which again, we were just talking about last night. Some of the projects we'd like to see Inhabit Indiana, get that up and rolling. Again, that's been kind of on the table for the last 5-10 years. Remote work incentives, sidewalk programs, business inventories, and blighted properties that we seem to have issues with in the borough, and some of the big topic items that came out of community development. Infrastructure, sidewalk repairs, street light improvements, curb additions, and a tree program, and to help the community with some of the tree issues that we find that's been brought up a lot. It's shade tree. The miscellaneous citizens ambulance, as you know, we gave them 40,000 last year. We'd like to budget another 40,000 this year. Again, that's going to be an on-topic discussion for future funding to help them. They obviously they reported to us their need for help, and we'd like to continue as a share partner with them. Engineering. So this is when I talk about engineering costs, this is to help get projects ready, like our stormwater projects. We'd like to get them shovel ready for those grant funding, that's infrastructure grants that's going to be available. So if we can get to engineering costs done and get the projects shovel ready, then they're ready to apply for those grants. But we need to have the engineering costs to get that done and come up with, update our stormwater plan. Backflow donations for Vales, again, that came out of Public Works with issues with the residents and backflow issues. So maybe we can help the residents with some type of backflow assistance. IRMC Park, we talked a lot about doing something with IRMC Park, putting more lights on, doing another grant for umbrellas. Kyle did, we have 2 umbrellas right now down there that was given from a grant. If we can maybe have some matching money, we can apply for another grant. Now, the next step, discuss initial projects, which that's what we did in each committee. So next step 2, we'd like to, again, let the public have input, let them know what's going on, continue to bring each item up under each department. And step 3, update any of the projects. So if we take this list now and we sit down and we start discussing like what maybe over time that you guys thought about it, that you don't want to see on this list. I know the sidewalk repair, maybe we might want to think something differently. That was brought up last night. And then again, have a next public meeting for more input. So I'm gonna sit down now. That's pretty much the slide, and we can kind of go into detail on the budget. Do you guys all have a copy of the budget figures?
Yeah.
And again, when we put those figures in there, some we got, we know the actual cost for the boiler repair. We know it's going to cost $160,000 to bring that boiler and replace it here. Ordinance updates, we know that's going to be about $50,000. Again, we might be able to use some of that CDBG money for the planning ordinances. So some of that money would not have to be spent. Police vehicle, we put $50,000 in there. Public Works barn, the estimate is around, it wasn't quite 15,000. It might come in lower. It was tough getting a hold of somebody to give us an estimate on it. Now let me explain this borough building repairs. When you look in here, you'll see immediate repairs, short-term repairs, and future. Now, if you would add it all together to fix this building, it's about $1.7 million to do everything that needs done here. But I've been actually, so what I would like to see is, and this will be taken to admin, and I've been talking to a gentleman, part of our stamp program, that they work with municipal lease. It's a bank and they do municipal leasing on energy efficiencies. So we did send them our estimated assessment of the buildings. So some of that cost could be put into, it's like a loan, but since it's through municipal lease government, it doesn't count as debt. And I was going to bring that to administration. So we'll be talking about that next month. So when you see that number, I kind of have a plan. Maybe we can move forward with that and use some of the ARP money to fix the immediate repairs or the short-term repairs, and the other repairs that we feel that could be done. Maybe we can go through this municipal lease. It's an option. So that's going to be coming to admin. So parking technology, which that's about 85,000. And I just want to go, one is to replace 76 meters. Our meters are, Hank gave me an estimate saying the repairs to fix the inside of the meters are so old and outdated. It costs more to fix these, to fix some of the parts to the inside meters. So the plan was to do certain areas and then budget out the next 2 years of, instead of obviously to replace all the meters, it's I think it was like $200,000. So if we can replace like the 600 block, 700 and 800 block on Philadelphia Street. That would be a good start. And then we can budget for the next years on getting the other ones replaced. The second part is the handhelds are, again, they're over 5 years old. The warranty is out on them. They're past their useful lifespan, and that runs about 32,000. And then for a vehicle, so we are hiring 2 more part-time people there. And when they say patrol vehicles, we either, if they drive their own vehicles, we have to pay for their mileage and that. If we purchase the vehicle, that would be for the permit areas where they have to go outside of Philly Street and do the permit areas off street, in that areas of patrol. So we put that in a budget. And again, parking has been hit hard. It's hard to budget some of these big ticket items that he would have never got to budget for those new parking meters.
I just had a question. In the market that we're in, that doesn't seem like a very young car. Cost more, $15,000.
Little tiny, it's not a police car. When, yes, you see a police car at 50,000, you're talking, the cars they drive is just little cars. Justin bought the other one for the parking department.
It's a Chevy Spark, I believe.
Yeah. Pull up windows.
Oh my God.
So no, that's again, that covers.
Is that,
One that the parking department purchased years ago.
okay?
Of your packet, we did get it. And again, all these were included, these estimates were included in your packets. Let's move on to infrastructure. We kind of put placeholders in there. We really have no idea. We've been talking with our engineers on different costs, like the sidewalk repairs. But again, that cost went through the roof. So we really had no idea what the budget. We know we want to kind of spend anywhere from 300,000 or 300,000, 350,000 on infrastructure. Again, those kind of things are going to be taken back to the committee, and we can start really working in detail what we want to do with those, or if you guys choose to move forward with those. Economic development, our goal is, again, community development is looking at some ideas. Either we would like to either hire a staff member to organize and kind of oversee these projects, the different projects that are listed here. That staff would be budgeted. We do have that in the budget available for an economic development / planner. Again, we're kind of I'm working with Ben and community development on that to try to come up with a job description. Or we can, another idea is like consult or do a contracted service for somebody that would come in and do these projects that we would like to see. So that we don't want to put that off. We want to kind of really, and I actually talked to Byron Stauffer today, and I sent him the sample job description to get his input. And so we're kind of working with him, and I'm going to continue to work with community development then on that issue, on that community development. Miscellaneous, again, that engineering cost is to get projects ready so we can apply for stormwater grant. Citizens ambulance, we put in there 40,000 as a to help. IRMC Park, the black backflow is 15. Downtown Indiana donation of 15,000, just because we work so well with downtown, and I hate to see that partnership go away. So if we can continue to help them, I know they're working with the chambers and stuff that's going on, but we'd like to kind of still continue that partnership. Yeah. Yeah, that's we're going.
Till the end, or ask them when we think of them?
No, I'm ready now to take any questions on like this portion of it. So have at it.
Question was just on the backflow donations. All right, now, and before, I guess really my question is, you had mentioned some of these are simply placeholders. what of them aren't placeholders? Because a generic dollar amount thrown in next to something, I mean, I don't want to ask you 20 questions about it, right? The plan is, if it's a placeholder number, obviously that plan isn't done yet. So asking questions on it is a little premature. But on the backflow donations one, is that a real number?
No, we don't. I think we pulled that out of a little bit of conversation I heard at Public Works. Like, what were they saying? At one time they were anywhere. Like, weren't they like $15, $30? Like the expensive one was like $30 a piece, but you could get a cheaper one for $10 a piece. So.
Say good luck, or is the idea to help them put these in? Because that's the hard part.
Again, I wouldn't know. That would come out of public safety. I don't know if we'd have the staff to do that, or Public Works, I'm sorry.
It was supposed to include. If it's a bunch of valves, then yeah, they'd probably buy a bunch of valves. I didn't know if the plan was to stop at that though, because unfortunately, the valve doesn't get you very far. You got to put it in, and usually you're 4.5 feet underground to do it, right? That's the hard part about putting in a backflow preventive valve.
You're not talking about putting in the valves, are you?
I think we're talking about assistance for people to put valves in, so I think
They apply for some type of funding, and, we make so much funding available, 1,000,
those details, I think that it was definitely,
Hard on it. $15,000 does not put a whole lot of them in. That's the only reason I brought it up.
Certainly, we don't want our crew or anybody doing that, because then it's liability issues and all that fun stuff, so.
it'd be more of a matching funds for sort of a thing, some kind of assistance. Which I think is the same conversation we had about the sidewalks too.
Okay.
Sure what happened with community development, there was more.
You have the sidewalks are in two different places. Could you talk about the kind of, at least the current vision of that as you see it?
One was, their infrastructure is, we take whatever, so much, 80,000, 100,000, 200,000, and we go around and fix sidewalks, fix the borough sidewalks. That's gonna cause an uproar, or I get that, because people are gonna be like, you fix that sidewalk, but there are some really bad sidewalks out there. It would be no different than fixing some of the streets in town, paving certain streets. Again, that would be a decision that we'd make. Would it be a tough decision? Yeah, but I think.
The sidewalks are supposed to be the purview of the homeowner. The road is not. So that would be a major difference between the two when it came to who fixed it or who paid to fix it. The trees, quite frankly, taking the trees down versus fixing the sidewalk, those are both supposed to fall under the homeowner's property owner. We're correct?
So, but we had a sidewalk program in the past where the crew would remove the sidewalk, and then the contractor would come in and lay the sidewalk. That was.
We didn't pay the contractor. We would just do part of the work. Again, I know it is possibly possible to go in and just sort of do folks sidewalks, but I do think that's going to cause an uproar, and I think rightfully so. I think we need to be thoughtful about it, and have that be a matching program. And in some places, maybe that's what we do. We do, but in other places, I think they could be matching.
The committee that, wanted, oh no, we need to fix the sidewalk. So, but that would be a perfect example where we would take that money and just move it down to the economic development part and put it more towards the sidewalk repair program, where we're assisting people in helping with them fix their sidewalk. And again, I like the idea it was brought up that our staff at one time, our public works department did remove the sidewalks, and the contractor would come in and fix it.
I haven't replaced the sidewalks, so I don't know what sort of percentage of the job that is. Is that a big help to remove the old? I would imagine that's heavy stuff.
The truth is, it depends on the contractor putting it back in. I put in sidewalks. I don't use poured concrete when I do it. But if you call me in to replace your sidewalk with paving stones, It's what's underneath that takes time, more than anything else, right? Pouring a bucket of concrete in a hole, obviously, I'm not, I'm no good at pouring concrete, okay? I'm gonna throw that out there, right? That takes some finesse, definitely takes some skill. But the act of putting it in the form is not the time-consuming, expensive part, is what I'm trying to say. It's prepping to be ready to pour, and carrying out the old sidewalk would be a big part of that. But it's how much digging is involved. Is the sidewalk even in the right place? Were there tree roots you gotta remove? I mean, these are the things that would go into that as well.
Like the assistance with the tree repair, which is the tree program. Again, that's under infrastructure. We put that under there, hoping with this new program, we're gonna go around and hopefully take some care of some of these trees, but I think the tree boxes uptown was really need addressed. So if we can put some of that funding to these tree boxes, work with the businesses, which all these businesses that uptown are willing to and that are ADA compliant. And so there's able for walking and to help with their outdoor dining, and that, I think that's where a good part, that infrastructure, some of that funding should go. But again, the tree program was brought up multiple times. We can either do assistance with, that could be either done as, okay, the tree, tree program either be done, we're putting this funding into going around and fixing these grates, the tree beds, or support the residents in helping with funding of their removal of the tree if they have to.
And to go back briefly to the sidewalk thing, you mentioned what we talked about last night. One idea that was floated in community development was that, if moving forward, there might be an argument for basically having a tax on sidewalk, and then the borough takes on the responsibility of maintaining the sidewalks, right? So instead of leaving it to the homeowner who may not be able to pay sometimes several $1,000s to replace a sidewalk when it begins to deteriorate, they pay as part of their municipal tax, and then we, as a borough, maintain them. And so, and the conversation came out of this, seeing what was in here, and that if we make a jump start on some of these repairs, then we we set the stage for something along those lines. Because there is, if you look at the data that came out that we have in the packet for tonight, one of the consistencies in the comments is sidewalk, 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 sidewalk. And then don't do contact tracing, sidewalk, 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 sidewalk. And so there were some themes in there. And this would be a way to address those concerns, because there's some of our neighbors who just can't maintain their sidewalks, and their sidewalks are now hard to traverse. So that was the discussion last night.
We have done, and it could just be a temporary tax for like a couple years. We did, the streetlight tax was only probably for 10 years, and we did away with that tax. But to have it temporary, maybe for 5, 10 years, and then get the sidewalks fixed. So that's an option. We can use some of that funding as like Ben said, to start it and see, so the residents can see it's getting fixed, and that's what it would be used for.
I have another question on the engineering costs. There was talk of a 20% potentially need in order to get a grant. Does the cost of engineering for a project count towards that amount?
No, in most grants, Kyle, every time, all the grants we come across, that's why engineering is it's always separate, because it never covers, rarely does it ever cover grants, or covers engineering for grants.
Add in there, it would help a lot, probably, over the number of projects.
And
Kind of a generic question. This is obviously not going to make it look like we just built a brand new town, right? $1.3 million is is only so much money and it's getting less and less, so to speak, with inflation. So there's going to be an optics question, there's going to be people that say, why'd you do this and not that? Right. And so I guess my generic question is it better to focus on a few things and do them all the way? Or is it better to do a little bit of a lot of things? And that's, I know you guys are putting the budget together, which I think makes the most sense, but then it becomes, I guess it comes to us then, right? So that would be my more specific generic question. That's a terrible way to phrase it, but, right, like.
Just phrase
I
it.
think I can answer it. I think it's a good question. And first of all, I want to say overall, I really appreciate the work you guys have done. I was one of, I'm sure lots of folks have been barking about, let's get this ARP funded out the door. And you guys have done, like staff has just done, I think, a really great, deliberate, public, as transparent as process as we could do. Like, I think you've done a really, really good job. And if you got turnout, some turnout, it's hard to get turnout in town, and you did. You got it. I think no other municipalities around are doing the kind of work I think that we're doing here, to be transparent about that. So I think it's a really big deal. And so I applaud you thank you for that. And I think it was great. I appreciate the thing that I think is reflected here is that nebulous, everybody said we want some funding for everything. And so what you have, we literally have it. You look at that pie graph, and which I also really appreciate this presentation. I think people would want to see it. I hope it's on is it on the?
Post the slides online after the meeting.
Cool. And there is an optics question. If this is our strategy, and it sounds like we do have time, we want to change it. If this is our strategy, there are some sort of highlight spots. There's some IRMC work that'll be done. There's some, people will feel that maybe in the sewers, but this is what it seemed like the community has said over the last year, as well as what I feel like council, at least from the Public Works Committee, a lot of our thoughts have been incorporated somehow in here as well. So
I just feel like the question, no matter what we do, we're going to be right now. What, you know what I mean?
Again, the sewer lines and stormwater, and that was part of the start, and people were complaining. The Marsh Run project, this wouldn't even touch it. So we are putting a huge Marsh Run area, the west side of town, like we're doing a whole makeover project for that infrastructure. So we can, again, once that's moving and we start having public input or public, and let the public know of the next step for that, that's going to show, okay, that's why we're not spending any of the money on that sewer project, because we're.
Expect those questions though, right? Why sidewalks, not trees? Why trees, not sidewalks? That sort of thing is going to fund.
Put a little bit of both. Again, the sidewalk repairs and the sidewalk assistant program kind of went both on there, because people were like, no, we need our sidewalks fixed. And then the active transportation's doing all this work, and they were doing, they were surveying the sidewalks. So we were going to get an idea of what the good and bad sidewalks are in town. Sarah probably could give us a list on Sarah of all the bad sidewalks she walks. So it's, again, the budget figures are some of the under general service. Those are probably the actual budget figures. Everything else is kind of ballpark projective stuff. And again, the general service is kind of stuff that we can kind of start moving forward and maybe starting to work on getting accomplished.
You may have said this. Can you say again on the future considerations under probable costs, the mechanical systems for this building, the bath replacement, ceiling, boiler, high efficiency, some of those things that we've been talking about here for a while, they seem to.
We'll get more in detail. So Sif McGraw, they came in and did obviously the report that you see here, that everything in this building that would.
I hate them too.
Take that out of the budget.
Now, some of this stuff was done, like the code department floor was done, but it's still on here, but that's obviously minimal, $6,000. But so what the plan was is if we use some of this ARP money for some of these short-term repairs, And some of the other repairs that would qualify under this municipal lease agreement for this loan, and it's through M&T Bank, which they're going to be, I think he's coming here for the admin meeting. I've been talking to him, and it's part of our stamp program. We've kind of all been working together and coming up with ideas, and they were telling me, hey, this is a great program for municipalities. You can use it. Take some of these costs that are in here, like the boiler system, that 160, that would qualify under this municipal lease loan. And then so we can take this 160 and put it towards something else in here that like the window, or well, the windows would be covered under the efficiency cost too. So like certain like new tiles or something like that. So we could shift the funding around.
I have a question. Of the 1.3 million, how much of that money have you received so far?
Just half. Hope,
Payment of half already, and we're hoping to have the next payment come in in July.
I told Kyle, I'm getting worried. We haven't got it yet. He says July. I'm like,
When we'll worry.
Have that money invested?
it's at S&T in the money market. Yeah.
It's just not sitting idle, at least it's trying to, I know interest rates are very low right now, but
Yeah, it's part of that project fund. So
Other clarifying questions. Again, I really appreciate all the work. So it's not really any criticism. The economic development sort of position. So that's not in here because that's more in our budget. That's on a regular general budget. Great. And then the bike ped committee is working on this active transportation plan. And that's an engineer, that's a plan project. That's not a physical project. But is there a way that some of that actual thing that not the plan, but the, some actual paint or signs on the road could happen? Is there room for that?
yeah, and actually,
Active transportation plan, the bike ped is going to come out with a kind of a recommendation for where we want to see our bike pedestrian sort of infrastructure look. And so I'm assuming they're going to have some kind of recommendations for physical landmarks around. And I don't know what exactly that looks like. Probably not giant. Well, they'll probably have giant recommendations. Probably, lower hanging fruit would be sort of some paint or signs and things like that. So I'm wondering if there's still an opportunity for that active transportation plan to have an input on this.
I'm not disagreeing. Yes, we can again adjust these figures and because we're already saying we don't want to see two sidewalk, like either we're going to go with one or the other. I don't think sidewalk repairs is what anybody's thinking right now. But again.
Okay.
But Nicole, these sidewalk repairs, what's the intersection of the current sidewalk repairs that were just done on 13th and Church? I mean, there's a whole bunch of sidewalks that just went in.
Project that was on 13th by Eisenhower. Like, no, that was the
Intersection corners on 13th near.
one on Eisenhower was the Eisenhower project, the sidewalk project. So that was a grant.
School, like places that didn't have sidewalks before, there were sidewalks put in. So we were talking about sidewalks for a long time, but most of the sidewalks have been repaired, and the ones that are chipped and people are falling.
The ones on the end were just repaired because they had to meet ADA requirements.
On the ends, there were also entire sidewalks put in.
We still have a lot of sidewalk that's in real bad shape.
Where?
First ward up by Peter's house, School Street. Yeah, I mean,
Over from where my wife tripped and fell on it once.
there's a lot that's it's gravel essentially, and there's several where people have painted the 4-inch gap like with an orange color to try and keep people from tripping on it. So there's a number of places still that are pretty
It's a
bad.
weird hodgepodge because some areas were told to fix their sidewalks. And so like, when you tell people to fix their sidewalks, they're not fixing them, or why is it a chronic problem?
Because it's expensive to fix it. I mean, I put it in the same category. So I understand what Luke is saying in terms of it's the homeowner's responsibility. I see it a little bit like the blighted property issue, that at a certain point, it becomes our responsibility.
I would say the same thing about the trees, which is why I originally suggested that as well. It's been so let go that almost a hard reset needs to be done. and they say, okay, we just spent $100,000 on this, expect a fine in the mail if you don't take care of your sidewalk, right? I mean, that's the general idea, I think, behind this is wipe out the problem, start over fresh with a renewed word to the populace, if you will. Take care of this or we're going to come make you do it next time.
But 100,000 wouldn't take care of the problem.
Yeah.
That's
Well, it
the
might
problem.
take care, well, I'm thinking of it from trees. $100,000 goes a lot longer in trees than it does in repairing sidewalks. Well, it depends how big the tree is, I guess, but.
One road.
Oh, I mean, we're back on sidewalks again. I would be in favor of leaving the repair program in there as well as sort of a longer term program. And I don't know, I may be alone in that, but I like that. And I would at least like to keep it on the table until we get additional feedback from, our constituents and whatnot. Or
And
people
what
have-
longer term one do you mean potentially taxing?
Yeah. Do you want to put that on the agenda for the next committee meeting so that people can come and possibly talk about that?
Our next meeting has got a lot. We punched a number of things, but we can definitely put it on there. But I mean, but I don't know that the sidewalk repair is not strictly community development. That's also a public works thing.
When talk about budgeting, repair things, I mean, it's kind of everybody.
So I guess that's, I mean, I'm not quite sure. I don't want to just completely hijack your thing. I'm sorry. But
This is where we're at. Want to continue. I was thinking, all right, we can break some of the smaller categories like the sidewalk. Who wants to take on sidewalks? Public Works.
I appreciate all the work you guys have done, so I don't want to like change it up and say, well, we're going to do something completely different. I do worry about putting sidewalks in. I would want to, I don't know, then it makes it complicated. Like, sure, we'll give you a lot of assistance, but there's got to be some kind of means testing or something, right? Like for,
Are we gonna set a precedent we can't back off of if we do a hard reset for the population on any specific thing? Are they gonna then expect it the next time and
Which is in a way why I'm sitting here listening and I'm thinking use those funds as more of like a grant program, not necessarily a you go and do it program. And the reason I say that is because now your homeowner, your property owner, you can require them to have some investment in it. Maybe it's not, I don't know, it could be whatever you want it to be. It could be 10%, 20%, 50%, whatever. And you have a match fund. And then, they would have to show, hey, we went to Joe's Concrete and here's the estimate and.
That's the guy who did mine. It's Joe from Nanny-Clo.
Okay. But my point is, when you do it in a fund like that, to me, you're getting homeowners to have some buy-in and some sweat in the game. Whereas, like you're saying, if you go out and let's say, for example, hey, we're gonna remove your sidewalk. Well, we hit a gas line that we didn't know was there. We hit a water line we didn't know was there. Inevitably, somebody is going to be upset with the job that got done. And they're gonna come back and say, hey, you're responsible for this.
Upset with the contractor.
The contractor, and all we do is say, here's some resources.
so you'd be leaning on the matching program or something.
If you wanted my opinion, that's
Could we do that? I'm sorry, could we do that with a sliding scale? Could we say?
based on economics.
Based on income?
You can set it up however you want, I believe, as long as it's fair.
I'd
And
imagine
as
that'd
long
be
as the
much of an
rules. Go ahead.
I just have a great idea.
it's on red in Vegas?
3 in the presentation, but instead of having like which committee decides which one, we can just have another work session. We can continue the having,
Committees for over a month and month or two, and then maybe in 3 months have another work session. Again, some of this, we have the funding, we could get the ball rolling on some of these things. like the police car, Justin, go buy a police car, because we know that's not gonna change, you know, some things like that. But some of these bigger, obviously, the infrastructure, the economic development person, we gotta figure out what we're even doing with. Hopefully, again, if we can get a person, a planner, economic develop, that person can run that sidewalk program and the different.
Similarly.
We have the parks people now, right? Or we're about to have parks people.
Start, yeah, that's in the process of going. So we have the parks person to start doing the needs of the maintenance in the area. But I would like to see
Process question. What kind of, do we need to take a vote on this or like what sort of, can we charge you? I mean, I realize from council's perspective, we probably feel like we want to have an investment in it. But like legally, like we could just say, go for it, do this general plan as nebulous as it is and communicate with us as we go, as you would normally, right?
it has to go through admin, or like all the funding, like if it's anything, again, over 50,000, let's go to admin.
Does the federal, do they need a final report? Like this is what we're spending on?
So every August, every April, they will require an annual report, but it doesn't have to be as granular as in like, hey, give me the pennies and of dollars of what you spent money on and give me invoices, quotes. I mean, like, it's not that typical sort of reporting, but I think it would be in staff's best interest and council's best interest if everybody kind of, think of this budget more kind of like a top dollar sort of deal. Like, it's like, okay, how much money are we going to allocate towards fixing this building? And then we as staff will do as best as we can to reduce that number, and any savings we have can then be reallocated to other projects and other programs. So it's like, that's why it's tough to juggle these things at the same time. That's why we couldn't have like the municipal loan programs and like deductions and things for you, because we just don't have those numbers. But like, if we have a set number that we can then go to get estimates for and say, look, this is how much money we have towards this, like, what can you do for us? And then from there, we just reduce as much as we can. And then any savings we have can go towards the signage purchases and things like that. And I guess that one other key thing to notice, this current kind of template, it does also leaves about $30,000 at the moment with all of these kind of, again, very placeholder. We just took, it was as simple as we had 5 economic ideas. We divided it by 5 with a clean number. And that's how there wasn't too much forethought into some of them, but like.
Services where we got actual quotes and cost, but and of course, engineering costs, we know. Actually, I wanted 100,000. Kyle cut me 20 there. But
So I guess maybe, sorry. With some of the more generic numbers, how and when do they become firmer? I just want to touch back on the backflow prevention valves again, as a for instance. At what point would the decision be made, hey, we're just going to provide the valve and you have to do the work, or we're going to help you, or it's a matching? Like at what moment in this does that make sense? Because again,
I would probably go to Public Works. We would talk about it. I would have to rely on Paul, our Public Works Director. I don't know what a valve looks like, a backflow valve like, so. So we would have to sit down, maybe he could price or go out and say, okay, these are the ones that most people need, or here's the higher value one, here's the lower value. Again, we could make the, here, we're giving you these valves, and then maybe give them recommendations who can help them put them in. Again, I don't think, no?
That scares me, because what happens if we refer to this contractor and they totally royally screw it up and damage somebody's water lines? Then they're gonna say, well, we went there because the borough said that's who to use.
Yeah.
We treat it the same way as a sidewalk conversation we just had, where there's a,
Let them do all that work.
we've got a fund where we will give you some percentage of what you spent on it back. Right? 'Cause I agree, buying somebody a valve is nobody good, but we're not going to install it for them. And if they get somebody, they buy it and have it installed or have one installed, we can offset some of that cost. Right?
I mean, there's 15 different things that we could kick back and forth. I guess what I'm asking is, when does the knife become sharp, so to speak, right? When does the project get finalized? Do we want to do a match? Do we want to give them money? Do we not want to do anything? That's kind of, when is that moment in time is kind of what I'm asking.
Like at the next public works meeting or wherever, say, okay, I like this idea that, actually, I kind of like that idea that you just said, that we find out what it costs for somebody to go in and put a valve in. So what it would be the cost, Luke? Just
$1,500, let's
Yeah.
say.
Public Works is gonna say, we can pay, what, 10% of that, 20% of that until we're out of funding of $80,000.
Should you do it beforehand, not after, right? That way they know they're, well, you had said, okay, they just pay $1,500, they come in and get 10% reimbursement. I would say to do that in the forefront. Come and apply for 10% assistance, because if the town says no, they may not do the project. They might not be able to afford it, right?
We don't normally give money before things get done.
Not even with an estimate, like, to the contractor even?
Paid it to, yeah, that would be beginning.
We'll do things before, just to make sure they get done, essentially. So we're not giving out money and people wandering off with it.
Could you pay straight to the contractor in that case? I could.
I mean, I guess
Or at least give approval beforehand. Could you do approval beforehand?
one way to think about this might be, you really care about this, and I know, and it's important.
The sidewalks, trees, I mean, it would be the same basic process.
To Nicole's earlier point, these are going to kick back to the committees to talk about, and then we're going to come back together in a couple of months with, as you say, a sharper knife, having the committees have looked at them, I think, right? And have a little bit more plan. And I agree with you. I would suggest that for anything that we're doing, that's a reimbursement plan, or, where the borough is using this money to offset some cost to a property owner, that we use it's the same across the board. I think that's wise. And
The simplest. And maybe the percentages change depending on what it is or something, but the same basic process.
But I think, yeah.
Eventually, it's gonna run out too, so not everybody's gonna get it, like first come, first serve type of.
It's similar to the Elm Street project, or Main Street, it's called the Main Street project. And I did one, I was a resident, I did one of those projects, and they required me to have an estimate and a drawing and a written letter ahead of time. Then I was approved, then I paid it, then I got paid back. So, and I would assume we would want a similar kind of administrative process, which isn't crazy.
I guess the final thing that I had said there was, did they tell you, if you do this, we will give you the 10%?
Yes.
Going into it, they would have been approved, is what I'm, okay.
And said, we actually don't like this. We'll only do it if you do this. We'll only reimburse for this part of the plan, I think. So there was some substantive feedback. So I would assume we would want something like that. Now, all of this does take an admin person, and so.
Well, they recommended doing this. Who's gonna recommend changing that the right way to change your valve?
You don't have
to do that. I'm just saying there's a template for this.
Elm Street had
Elm Street had a different.
They had rules and regulations that you had to follow and to meet the state requirements.
Ours could be as simple as if, if you have a bonded contractor do the work, then we'll reimburse it, right? I mean, we could have a pretty simple.
Yeah, apply. Contractor. Show us final bill, see ya.
Inspecting it, giving I don't think we have anybody on staff.
For the backflow preventers, is that what you're talking about right now?
To have to take that.
Responsibility. Is there a
Like,
fee
I
to
like
apply?
to have the contractor come in, say, I'll install this valve for this much. And then you come to the borough and say, I want to apply for this grant, public assistance program. And we say, okay, we give you 15, 20% of whatever it is that we decide. And
Now, obviously, if that project, going back to your point, if that project, whatever whatever it is, would require a code inspection anyway, because under the construction codes, that's required. That's all should be included in that construction cost. You know, when I had a new electric meter in, the guy had to come and check it, you know, when I put a new panel
It's for, if anybody remembers she mentioned the streetlight tax. Is anybody around back then when they had that? If there were complaints about it or not? Do you remember on streetlights at some point? For like, people would kick into a fund for streetlights. Do you remember? Yeah, so do you remember there being any people upset about that?
Here when I started, and I wouldn't even know the process of adding a new tax to a bill.
Oh, other municipalities, yeah, other municipalities do it. I've seen it. They have a street light tax. I mean, it's, you know, to pay for the lights on the street, you know.
There is, that's how this came up. There is a sidewalks tax. Somebody brought it up at a.
Fire tax, EMS tax, they have, I mean, you can,
The next
if you want.
We have a fire tax.
future, I like it.
And would be to hit the different committees, really bring into these details about that. Again, I like that idea of pushing, okay, this is our decision. We're gonna give 10% or whatever, if we know kind of what it costs is to do it. And if we have, you know, 80,000, you know, if we're giving 200, 300, whatever, that could give a lot of residents a start on that. So,
Yeah, it might encourage them to do it even if they weren't gonna do it, just because, oh, I can get $200 towards that. Why don't I take advantage of that?
And the percentage of it also helps, just instead of doing it, like saying, here's 500 to do it, then it's, that's
Right.
gonna cost 500 at that.
Right,
point.
and if you're,
Yeah.
and
It's
if
a
your
percentage,
house.
they're gonna
is-
get the
right.
cheapest bid, and they're gonna, you know, it's not gonna cost as much if you're only given a percentage.
Insurance, you know, when you wreck your car, right?
are we all on page then, hitting the committees then?
Do you have a deadline? August,
No,
September?
we'll do it in May and June. We'll hit the committees in May and June. I know, the economics one, we need to.
In May. Yeah, that's fine.
We already met.
Yeah, on here that's like off topic that I think everything on here is you guys are kind of came up at the meeting, so try to, again, Kyle sucked through it, hung in there.
On public feedback. Yeah, are we going to do, so I think somebody had suggested this on a different topic. Can we, or should we do some sort of extra Q&A time, right? 3 minutes for someone to talk at us and then we don't respond to them may not feel like feedback, like a feedback session when it comes to that. So I don't know I don't know if this has ever come up before in to this magnitude, but
Today, if like, again, we put it out there, it was a great write-up in the paper today that it was gonna be talked about. If somebody would have showed up today and said, wait a minute, I don't understand that, I would have been glad to explain to them like more detail. I think it's to get the people here, Luke.
I guess more what I was saying is, would it make some kind of sense to have an extra meeting specifically for a Q&A style conversation more? And again, I've never been through this before, so.
When we decide to do this again in August, if our meeting starts at 7, do a 6:30 Q&A
Do
question.
you want to do it during the summer when everybody's still busy, or do you want to wait
Oh.
till September when everybody's coming back to earth?
Busy in September, though. I mean, I think it depends on how old your kids are. I mean, I think it's always gonna be busy, unfortunately.
If somebody's doing something, I mean, truly. And the longer it goes on, this money becomes less the longer it takes us to spend it.
Put this on, if we do it in July or August, do a 6:30 advertise, try to get people here for Q&A question.
You know, he's gonna come. Another idea though is, because I think you're right, more of this Q&A, more of this back and forth is good. I didn't really want to say this idea, but we have these Third Thursday events that we sponsor. The borough sponsors Third Thursday. This is our event, along with the eye. We should probably have a booth, like that would be a great spot to have counselors there every third Thursday. to just to be responding to any questions. And we might not have all the answers, but they would probably, we all got these name tags now, wear the name tag. And that's like you, and then we can do that maybe every Thursday until their Thursdays are over.
It rules out public safety though.
Radio every fourth Tuesday.
A great job, like,
I'm going to be on the radio every fourth Tuesday. I can say stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah. we can talk about-
Early for questions, something like that, like lead up.
Yeah.
Or saying that in a booth to people every single Thursday.
It's only third Thursday is once a month. It's once a month.
every single Thursday.
But it
It's
could
once a
still,
Thursday.
you'd still get
Yeah,
two or
it's
three
every
of them.
third one. It's not every single one.
Just hanging out. Little sign, come talk to Luke.
Okay,
So,
all right, good.
so celebrity.
Great, so that was the game plan.
Guys, if we had a dunk tank.
I don't think anybody would come.
Look at setting up a booth at third Thursday?
Oh, we can do that.
Sure. Love last minute things.
do we have a tent?
Six pack. And
2018, we had that, but where any of that is, I couldn't tell you. It's probably has not moved in 3 years, wherever it is.
But you basically just need a table and a tent and 2 chairs.
I mean, I'm sorry, a tent. We can just need a table.
So take the board.
Have handouts, have a table. You guys wear your name tags, look pretty, and listen to somebody to love.
Demanding, yeah, look pretty.
Just wear your name.
You just have to wear the name tag, exactly.
This on Thursday?
Day after tomorrow.
All of us gonna fit inside.
Well, 3 of us will be in a committee.
And you gotta be careful that you don't have all 12, because then that could be a quorum.
Not at 5 o'clock.
Actually, we shouldn't.
what we've done in the past.
Do this. Anything else?
There's a sign up. We did a sign up before. We did like a Google Sheet sign up. I can put out a Google Sheet sign up. I didn't want me. The reason I didn't mention that, didn't want to mention it, because this is like, well, will you guys do this more stuff for us? But I could at least send out a Google spreadsheet and we can all just sign up for some third Thursday between now and then, and maybe just have two people per.
As then, I mean, I'll go, or Kyle and I can rotate. Kyle mostly goes to them anyways, so.
Anyway, so it's possible you won't have to do it at all. So just put your name on it.
5 to 7,
It's
5 to 7.
Yeah.
All right, so who's coordinating?
Before tomorrow.
Anything else?
Does anybody want to do it on Thursday? 'Cause I'll do it on Thursday. I'll be on there on Thursday.
I'm free on Thursday.
All right, so we're gonna be there on Thursday. You guys got Public Works, and I'll send out the thing for the rest of the third Thursdays. Yes. Yes, boom, sorry. No, sorry.
Longer, so Boom can't leave.
Yeah, I can ask questions about anything if you need me to.
Boom's out, Boom's out.
Is there anything else? On your old business? Is there any new business to come for the meeting? Do we have a motion to adjourn? Says Poom, almost out the door.